What's up, guys? Belamy Prime here, and it's been quite some time since I've showed my face in the Arcade/Twitch community, especially regarding Arcade. So, yeah, I haven't been around for quite some time. I did quit the game about a month and a half into Arcade Unchained's release. It wasn't because I disliked the game itself, or the fact that, anything happened that made me not want to play specifically. It was a combination of a few things, one of those main things being the fact that I finished school and got a full-time job. Until recently, that's what I'd been doing, but as most of us know, some of us with non-essential positions have a little bit of more free time on our hands. So recently, I've got back into Arcade Unchained. About 5 days ago, I started playing again. Those of you who follow me on Twitch would be aware of that, not necessarily everyone on YouTube though. So the reason that I kind of stopped playing, and a lot of people already know this, but one of the main reasons was the job part, but also because I kind of burnt out on the grind of Arcade itself. The dailies, even for a veteran like me, were a bit much at the start, on top of all of the responsibilities that I was dealing with in the game itself, trying to put out YouTube videos, streaming every single day, things that I had never done before. Taking on all these responsibilities, sponsors, and all that kind of crap. On top of leading a 250-man guild on release and, trying to, for some reason, be competitive with that guild for, whatever. We had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't call it a workload because, I'm just playing a video game. But the amount of things that I was dealing with in regards to the game, on top of trying really, really hard to stay competitive because of how much I talked up my abilities in the game itself, not just with PvP and things like that, but my ability to grind and actually get ahead of the gear curve, which I did manage to do quite successfully until the point that I quit. But yeah, you guys get the idea, right? Trying to stay competitive while taking care of all of those different little things, although was incredibly fun. We had a ton of good times with the tier list guild on release on Tyranno's server. We had a ton of fun playing. I had a ton of fun streaming, and I enjoy making videos. I genuinely do. So they were all great things, but it burnt me out quite quickly. And I had to have a break from the game. And I knew eventually I would come back. That's why I made a few little investments into certain currencies in the game that I knew would earn me a good little bit of interest if I did return to the game, which I knew I would eventually because I always do with this game whenever I do quit or have a break for a while. That paid off nicely, but I knew I would eventually come back, and now that I got a little bit more free time on my hands, that time has come. So about 4 or 5 days ago, I went live on Twitch, and I was kind of reading up on the patch notes that are currently live in Arcade Unchained, the ones that I missed during the time that I was away. Caught up on that a little bit, logged in, found out that my land had unfortunately demoed, so I lost all of that, which is unfortunate, but we'll make do. And kind of logged in to get a bit of an impression of the state of the server, the game itself. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video, kind of the state of Arcade Unchained, at least my first impressions or recent impressions upon returning to the game the last 4 or 5 days. Where the servers are at, what the population's like, what the community's like, what the game state itself is like, and while I AFK through this Crimson Rift here, like a great faction member that I am, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So we're going to jump into the video. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope, just like everyone over on Twitch, my YouTube community welcomes me back into the fray of this wonderful game. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and I will see you guys in what's the world of Arcade called? Is it Erinal? I don't know. I might start the video. So, as I mentioned earlier, the first thing I did when I logged in was check to see if my land had demoed. It had demoed, of course, because I hadn't played in quite some time. I was trying to keep up the taxes on it, but I just forgot to log in for however long, and it demolished. So that's unfortunate. I don't have land as of right now. that can get sorted out later. I'll figure something out. But what I did immediately after that was I queued myself into an arena. Now, instead of queuing into a sparring arena like a smart boy, I queued into a gladiator arena. Mind you, I'm 6.8k gear score at this point, so that was never really going to go well. But nevertheless, I did it. I immediately got paired up with a 15k gear score mage in cloth with a mythic buff. And sure enough, although I got the jump on him initially, my damage wasn't actually even enough to get through his insulating lens buff. So he put me in the ground. I immediately come out of that gladiator arena, and my first response to that was, what is the average gear score like on Arcade Unchained right now? So I opened up the rankings to have a look to see what I could see. The top gear score player was 17,000 gear score, which was surprising. My chat then told me that they increased the amount of gear score that you get from certain items, and they actually gave gear score to items such as costumes and undergarments. So that was a small contributor to the increase in gear score. So what I thought was about 17k, actually, from what I'm used to, it would have been about 15k, 16k gear score. So I just took every gear score that I saw and kind of took 1,000 off that to kind of get an idea of what what that gear score represented as far as what I'm familiar with. And the average gear score on my server was based on the leaderboard, and if you generally want to base it on the bottom of the leaderboard, was about 12-13k gear score, which, considering the additional gear score put on costumes and stuff like that, was not an insurmountable task for me to catch up to. In fact, I thought, you know what, this might actually be pretty easy. I'm only 6.8k gear score, but I can catch up to that. I know that I can catch up to that. I've caught up to that kind of gear score pretty easily in the past on Legacy after quitting for, certain amounts of times. So it wasn't something that was going to be insurmountable. So that was good to see. Everyone's in a good place in terms of their gear, but it's nothing that's not going to be possible for me to catch up on. And in fact, in the 5 days since I've returned, I've gone from 6.8k gear score to almost 9k gear score. So we've gone up a pretty significant amount, and I'm having a good time doing it. So that was my first thing. It was a bit of a moment where I thought, whoa, okay, the gear score's a little bit higher than I expected. But, the truth of the matter is it's not as bad as I thought. And I'm on a bit of an outlier server, which is Tyrannos on NA. I think a lot of servers on NA specifically have lesser geared players on average. So that's reassuring for anyone who's thinking about returning from, different servers such as Jurgen or Dinestrius. I don't know what each specific server is like, but based on the leaderboards, they're in, an alright spot, and no gear score is, something that you cannot catch up with. So that was not off-putting for me. The next thing that I did was immediately start running through, zones that should be populated, such as I had a look at Solus in the Hero Hall to see what kind of people were around. Surprisingly enough, there was a lot of people logged in for that time of day. It was a pretty obscure hour of the day. Prime time for me in Australia is basically like the least prime time for NA and other regions, so I was surprised by how many people were still logging in. And in fact, the other day when I logged in, half of the NA servers were still on high population or even had queue times. So I don't know what was happening that I wasn't aware of, but there was a lot of people logging into the game. And that's always good to see because, 6 months down the track, however long it's been, that's a really good sign for a game. For an MMO, especially one like Arcade, fresh starts that have happened in the past, non-Arcade Unchained fresh starts that have happened in the past, the servers are dead within 2 months, 2-3 months, right? And when I say dead, I mean dead. Like there's no items in the auction house, there's none of this, none of that, right? And Arcade Unchained, in comparison to that, is in a great place. And speaking of the auction house, the first thing that I noticed upon looking at the auction house, because that is another indicator that I like to look at to see just how healthy your server is to check the auction house and check some of the prices on standard items such as Lunar Bright, Arceum, Onyx Arceum, all of that kind of stuff that that you use on a day-to-day basis or need for your gear and such. If that's on the auction house in abundance, generally your server's in a good good state, right? So I checked all of those things, and sure enough, they were in quite a good state. Everything was more expensive than I expected. You know, I didn't expect some items to inflate quite as much as they did, but nevertheless, there's a whole community of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, or thousands, I should say, of players who are all trying to get gems and costumes and different things all at the same time. So it makes sense that these things are expensive. And that's when I noticed that I had actually, before I stopped playing the game, invested a few thousand gold into what was at the time really cheap Superior Glow Lunarite. So I ended up with about 800 or so Superior Glow Lunarite before I quit. When I come back, I find out that this amount of Lunarite is actually worth around about 20,000 gold. So if I did want to return, which at that point I was thinking, you know what, this is in a pretty good state, I might actually return and play this game, I would actually have a pretty comfortable amount of gold to return with if I sold those Lunarites, which they're Lunarites they're going to sell. So I was pretty stoked about that, and yeah, sure enough, the next day I started up my stream and got back on the grind. So I've returned to Arcade about 5 days ago now, so I feel like I'm in a good position to give my first impressions of the state of the player base upon returning to the game. First, I want to say that people who are looking to try the game out, please do not look at the Steam charts. Steam is a terrible way to indicate whether, like, how many people are actually playing the game, because you got to keep in mind that Steam released Arcade Unchained a week after just being able to play it on the Glyph launcher. So no one plays the game from Steam, everyone just plays it from Glyph itself. So Steam is a really, really poor indicator of how many people are actually playing this game. They'd actually probably be better off taking the game off Steam completely, because it's such a turnoff. They look on Steam and they see there's probably like 500 to 1,000 players on Steam at any given time, because no one plays from there. But the servers in general seem to be in a good state, I'd say, comparing to any previous regular Arcade Fresh Start server. They're in an amazing state. They have easily 10 to 15 times the regular population a server would have at this point. That's an understatement. It's probably 50 times the amount. There's actually a lot of people playing Arcade Unchained, to my delight, and a lot more than what I was expecting. A lot more than what I was expecting, and I'm very excited to get back into the game again. Now, in terms of the actual state of Arcade Unchained as a game itself, I feel like we're also in a much better position now. A lot of people were concerned about the amount of dailies that you have to get done. The upcoming patch that we're getting, from my understanding, combines all of the Hiram dailies into weeklies. That'll be a great change, and that's upcoming very soon, I hope, for NA and EU. On top of that, dailies in general have just been a lot breezier since returning to the game. Everyone in the general player base of the server are a lot more geared, which means Hiram dailies go off very smoothly and very quickly. I did a Hiram daily reset raid today. It took 20 minutes, and then I went off and was doing my own thing to be productive. It was great. Speaking of dailies, the Arc Pass has been now changed to weekly missions. You have 12 missions to do per week, per character. It's very easy. If you're doing one character, you'll do it in absolutely no time at all. You'll actually probably just complete it by chance, just doing other regular stuff. It's great. It's in a really good state right now. It gives really amazing rewards. At least the current iteration of it does. I hope they keep it up with that. I was actually able to complete the Arc Pass on all 4 of my characters, and don't pull me up, one of those characters is on the same account as another. I only have 3 accounts. I was able to do the Arc Pass on all 4 of my characters the first day after it reset in about an hour. It took me no time at all to go through all of those, and it was very worth my time to do so. Speaking of the Arc Pass and the rewards that it gives, a lot of people had a lot of troubles when progressing their Hiram gear and quit over this because they had a lot of troubles with crystallization and not being able to awaken their pieces. Specifically, crystallization being one of the main contributors to people leaving the game. It's very frustrating, I get that, and there wasn't a very good source of decrystallization scrolls in the game. That has been changed. First of all, the Arc Pass itself gives you an abundance of free decrystallization scrolls, and on top of that, they've added the decrystallization scroll to the Diligence shop for a meager 30 Diligence coins. So it's very cheap to get, and it doesn't feel as disheartening to get a decrystallization now as it did before, because most likely you'll have 1 or 2 sitting in your bag from the Arc Pass, and if not, you'll have, your 30 Diligence or whatever you may need for a decrystallization scroll instead of 10,000 freaking honor points. So that's really great. And thankfully, world bosses are competed over in the general way, not for 50 gold a pop or for whatever bonus you may be getting from the Arc Pass. The missions themselves have been cleaned up and they're very good, at least in my opinion. My first impression of them is very great. More often than not, you'll complete your Arc Pass just doing your day-to-day stuff, synthesizing gear, earning a bit of honor, earning a bit of vocation, spending a bit of labor. They're very straightforward, very simple, and you can either push your Arc Pass out in a single hour the day it resets, or you can leave it for a couple days and most likely it will complete itself and you'll get all the rewards for basically no time investment. Since the release of Arcade Unchained, we've had a couple patches from my understanding with some new content. We have some new Ancestrals, which are quite nice to play with. I've enjoyed them so far. And on top of that, we have a new solo dungeon, which you'll see the footage of in the background here. This was one of my earlier attempts of the dungeon. I've been struggling a little bit because I'm quite undergeared for it, but I've been doing my best to learn the dungeon and get the quests done within it to make it a bit easier later on. I've been enjoying it thoroughly, and I look forward to getting myself a good necklace from the dungeon with all those juicy stats they provide. Now, I wouldn't be able to make a video giving my first impressions of the current state of Arcade without having a few negatives. And the first of which is the fact that there's no live stream anymore by Gamigo. It was really cool having the live streams they did leading up to the Arcade Unchained release. It was something that Tryon always did for regular Arcade every single week. They would sometimes miss weeks, but for the most part, they had a live stream every week or every couple of weeks where they would update the players on what they were working on, what was coming to the game, and, you know, just connect with the community in a way that is very beneficial for both sides. And for that to not be a thing in Arcade Unchained after we kind of, were promised that it would be is very disappointing. Another thing that's been very disappointing is hearing that, yes, in fact, things like tickets and anything customer support related has been very poorly dealt with, in the way that tickets take months to be responded to, if at all. People have multiple tickets in for multiple issues, some worse than others, that have not been resolved or even responded to or looked at, and that's really something that's not okay. No matter what game you come from, how many people play your game, whether it's 10 people or a million, you need to have a relevant customer support system, and issues need to be dealt with. These issues not being dealt with, player to player, cause people to leave the game, and it's bad for the game state overall. And it's just only going to cause your player base to diminish, no matter how big or small the problems are. Each and everything if someone's willing to put in a ticket for something and take the time to do that, then there's a problem that's affecting them in a way that's made them willing enough to do that. So it needs to be addressed. The last thing, developer-wise, that needs to be addressed is the fact that there's a pretty prolific, nowhere near as bad as what it was on Legacy and some other MMOs, but a pretty prolific real-life money transaction situation happening on Arcade. People are very easily able to buy gold and buy accounts and different things like that, and whether it affects the game or not, it's something that shouldn't be happening as much as it is. If it's limited just a little bit, it'll help. I wouldn't say it's bad. There's definitely other games where it's much worse, and Arcade regular Legacy is one of those cases. But it definitely seems like they're not putting in as much effort as they could be to police these things that are going on, especially since you can see people in-game, in text chat, admitting to doing such things without being punished. So I think if at least a few of these people are made example of, it might remove people's willingness to participate in such schemes, but we'll see. Hopefully that's something that they're working on. Anyway, guys, I kind of just wanted to touch base, let everyone know that I'm playing Arcade again. It's definitely in a better state than what it was when I quit. So, for those of you who are in quarantine thinking about returning to the game, now's probably the best chance you got for doing that. Yes, there are some more negatives that could be said and could be spoken about, but there are also a lot more positives about the game that have changed since you probably last played. So give the game another chance, come try it out, come hang out with me. I'll be streaming over on Twitch. I hope you guys can forgive me for the time off I took from YouTube specifically. I obviously was never a Twitch streamer, but I know a lot of people were disappointed to not see me over on there as well, so apologies for that. I will be playing again, and I will be streaming as often as I can, and starting to put out videos again as of now. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'm going to end it with a small clip from our live stream earlier where I somehow managed to defeat a 13k gear score melee as an 8k gear score mage, and we can all laugh at his expense. But anyway guys, I've been Belamy Prime, and I'm gonna go eat my dinner. Where's the gamer? Hey, oh, okay. Okay, alright, okay. Okay, he's got a little bit more gear score on me, a little bit. Fuck. I'm so dead. I'm so fucked. Oh my god, you're so bad, bro! 13k gear score, by the way. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh god, I made a mistake. Oh my god, let me out of this. You're dead, bitch! Oh! I knocked my shit over. How much gear score am I? 8.3k? I think that's where the shadow play. Save. Holy fuck, I dabbed like and knocked my fucking external hard drive off the top of my computer. Fuck. Oh man. Get the fuck out of my arena, bitch!